Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Christian. I hope you're having a great evening, morning, day, afternoon, moment, whenever you are seeing this video. Today guys, we're going to just talk really quickly. I don't know how quickly, but we're going to be talking about how to stop trauma dumping on everybody. I don't remember who sent me this suggestion or where I got this suggestion, but somebody left me a comment or a message somewhere wanting me to talk about how to stop putting your trauma on others when you are healing. And I thought this is a really, really great topic because we talk often about not letting people trauma dump on us, but what about when you're the type of person that likes to trauma dump on other people? And I feel sometimes I can feel this way if I have a lot to say, a lot going on, I need to get it out. Now, I might not necessarily want to talk to anybody about it, but I just want to speak about it. And sometimes when I'm upset, I want to talk to all of my best friends so I can get 5 different opinions, or really 2 different opinions. So I can get 2 different opinions to figure out, what I need. But I think trauma dumping is a response that's a bit involuntary. When you have a lot going on, I think it's kind of normal to get comfortable in a space and just dump. And some people you're going to be more comfortable just doing that on, and some people you won't be. I feel I always come across people who tell me their whole life story or just tell me a bunch of crazy stuff. And, sometimes I can have conversations with people where I might ramble or feel like I say too much about certain things. So I feel like it's important to be mindful on both sides. If people are dumping on you, if you are dumping on others, whatever the case may be. But in this video, we're going to be talking about how you can stop trauma dumping on the people around you. So let's get into it. So the first thing I would say is be mindful of if you're trauma dumping or if you're just venting. I do think that there's a difference between venting and trauma dumping. I think venting, and it's really just a connotation. I think venting is done in a space where there has been a conversation like, hey, can I talk to you about something I need to vent? Trauma dumping is more so just literally putting your issues and stress on someone else in an energetic way. Whenever you are trauma dumping, I feel the intention is to, let me get this off of me and put it on this person because I don't want to deal with it anymore. Even if you aren't thinking about the latter part of the intention, let me put it on this person, you are thinking, let me get this off of me. Versus venting, I feel you're doing it with the intention of, let me share this, let me get this person's opinion. I love my friend, I trust my friend, let me see what they have to say. I know I can trust them to give me feedback or even just hear me. I feel like it's a different intention when we vent versus when we're trauma dumping. So that's how you can kind of differentiate between, am I venting to my friend or am I trauma dumping? Did you ask them if you can vent? Did you ask, hey, are you in a good space? Did you have a good day? How are you? How was your weekend? How was your day? I like to kind of tap in with somebody before I even ask them like, hey, can I talk to you about something? I want to make sure they're okay. Are you having a good day? Are you good? Are you busy? What do you have going on right now? Before I just, give them or tell them everything that I have going on. So you always want to make sure that you ask permission or you check in with the person. And also, your trauma dumping shouldn't come in a form of where you're venting your expression, whatever. It shouldn't come in the form of like word vomit or diarrhea of the mouth. I feel another way to know for sure that you're trauma dumping is if you can't stop yourself. Like if you are going and going and going and going. Also, if it's been a long time that you have done any expression, the next time you do it, you might trauma dump. Or if you ever start expressing yourself and you weren't even intentionally doing it, it just came out, So it's really, really key to think about how you reflect, how you express, and also what those things look like. Do you take some time to reflect on the things that hurt you before you tell somebody about it? Or does it happen and you immediately give it to your friends or the people around you with all of the anger and the vitriol and the rage? That goes into trauma dumping as well. I feel like that can be a different space. When we vent, you might have had a little bit of time to think about something. You might be a little emotional, but trauma dumping can sometimes be toxic, or not sometimes. Trauma dumping is usually always toxic. But I do think there is a way to express yourself with friends and the people that you love and do it in a healthy way. So always ask how they're doing and always make sure you check your emotions before you do it. Some people don't care. If I have a friend that is on my same level when it comes to stuff. If something really pisses them off and it might really, really piss me off, then I might be able to call them up when I'm in the middle of being mad. But if I have a friend that's not like that, I might not call that person when I'm at the peak of my anger, because it might be trauma dumping to them. But to somebody else, they might be right here with me because that's how they express themselves too. So I think it's important too to just figure out how the people around you express themselves, and express yourself with someone that's going to balance and give you the energy that you're giving. If you're having a heated discussion, find somebody that can have that heated discussion with you, or at least someone that isn't going to be made uncomfortable by that heated discussion. If you're going to talk about, some trauma or some abuse that you've dealt with in a relationship, and you have someone in your life that's dealt with that same thing and it's a trigger for them, maybe, keep that away from them, at least until you can have a calm discussion about it. So I think all of that makes a difference between whether we're venting or whether we're trauma dumping on somebody. Also, of course, make sure that you're dealing with your trauma and you're dealing with your stuff. You cannot just maneuver through life trying to push down your trauma, your pain, your frustration, your triggers. That is no way to live. And if you are living every day trying to forget and act normal and just mask how you're really feeling, 9 times out of 10, if you ever do express, you're going to trauma dump. Just like I said, if you hold that stuff in, you're not going to be able to control the flood that comes out. You're not going to be able to control it. So challenge yourself to express yourself to yourself every day. I think I started dumping less on people in my life when I did the dumping where I was supposed to do it on myself. You're supposed to dump that stuff on you, not on everybody else. You can vent to them and share to them and express to them later on when you feel better. But in the midst of what you're feeling, don't put that on anybody else. Don't subject anybody else to that. Do it to you, because you're the one that knows how you feel. You know why you feel that way. So literally have a conversation with yourself. Talk to yourself on camera. Sit in front of a mirror. Talk to yourself. Go out in nature. Talk to yourself. Do a walk around the house and just speak out loud, But give yourself an opportunity to get out your initial reaction, your initial feeling, your initial vibe. Also, I would say, when you are venting to someone or expressing yourself, there has to be some intention. Even if you don't want advice, do you want them to understand you? Do you want them to validate what you're feeling? Do you want them to relate to you? Do you want to see if there's a connection between something you've experienced and something they've experienced? What is your intention behind sharing with somebody? If there really isn't any intention there and you just need to release or get it off, send it to the journal, send it to yourself in the mirror, send it to God, do a prayer. Don't always subject the people in your life to the harshest, most rawest parts of your emotions, especially if it can be a little unstable. And when we are trauma dumping, we all experience trauma as human beings. So 9 times out of 10, if you're trauma dumping on someone, you are triggering them. People trauma dump on me all the time. People send me emails all the time where the email is this long or the DM is this long, and I'm scrolling, and they're talking about abuse they've experienced and all kind of traumatic stuff they've experienced, and they want advice. But that is trauma dumping. You can have a meeting with me and pay for my time for an hour and talk about every fucked up, bad, terrible, horrible thing that ever happened in your life. The intention is the difference. The intention is the difference. There is an exchange of energy. You are paying me for my time. Or if you're having a conversation with a friend, you've already had that conversation with yourself. So the exchange of energy is, before I come to you, I'm going to pay for your time, or I'm going to earn your time or exchange that value for your time by checking myself at the door. That's how you pay your friends for your time. You might not always pay them, money. Like sometimes you might take them to dinner, or, girl, you helped me out, so I'm gonna get you some flowers, or here's a Starbucks gift card for listening to all my drama last week. It doesn't have to be financial. It really probably won't ever be, but I just said that because folks pay me for my time, because that's my job. But I do think there is a way to have an exchange of energy that can serve as that payment before that conversation. So that exchange of energy could look like, let me have a conversation with myself first. Let me pray first. Let me do a releasing ritual first before I have a conversation with my friend, because then I know I've dealt with some of the energy, I've filtered through some of the energy, so they don't have to take the brunt of everything I've been feeling and experiencing. They can take what they can handle. And because I've released some of it, half of it, a quarter of it, whatever the case may be, it's going to be a little bit easier for my friend to carry the load. It's going to be a little bit easier for them to kind of maneuver what I have to tell them. But that's something to be mindful of as well. Also, if you trauma dump on people a lot, get you a therapist. Get a therapist, get a spiritual mentor, get a life coach, get someone that you can have a conversation with that will give you solutions to the things that you need. Or you could seek out solutions on your own first. But I always think a great way or a great rule of thumb to make sure you aren't just dumping your trauma on someone is to ask yourself, have I looked at solutions for myself? Have I figured out what I can do differently in this space to feel differently and get a different result? Or has it happened and am I immediately running to my friend? And again, running to your friends isn't a bad thing. You're supposed to vent to your community. That's literally the point of community. But you have to give your community an avenue where they can actually help you. I feel also when people trauma dump, they don't really have the intention of getting better or really doing anything differently. All you're thinking about is, I just need to get this off of me. You're not really thinking of the forward plan. Having an intention in mind, thinking of that forward plan, I think is really going to make the difference, because even if you are emotional in your venting, even if you are emotional in your conversation, you know that you want to do better. You know you want to heal. You know you want to feel better. Like, you can totally feel the difference between someone crying to you and they've already asked for help. They already want help, they're already in their journey of getting help, and they're just overwhelmed and they need a friend, versus someone crying to you immediately after a situation and you know they're going to go right back. You know, I think we also experience this when we have friends that are in toxic situations or in toxic jobs, have toxic family relationships even, and we know that they're not leaving, we know that they're not going to change, but they just continue to dump on us their problems, their complaining, their issues. Take some time to have a conversation with yourself first and with God first about the things that are stressing you out, the things that are bothering you, the things that are weighing you down. Don't automatically feel like the people in your life are your first line of defense or protection or solace when it comes to you not feeling your best, you know? Because it's not. You are your first line of defense. You know, even if the people around you let you trauma dump on them, that really isn't helping you. You still have no solutions. All of those energies are still going to be there. If not, they're going to be more intense because now you fired up and you've dug everything back up again. But when you dig it up with the intention of release, figuring it out, understanding it, it's a completely different exchange. It's a completely different relationship that you have with that trauma dumping. I think awareness is really important too. Just being aware of how you come off to people. If you know you be trauma dumping, or if you have a question, am I trauma dumping? Really be aware of how you have conversations with people. Be aware. Ask yourself, when I'm having a bad day, do I just call my friend and dump, or do I ask them how they're doing? Do I give myself a little time to kind of sit with what I'm experiencing, or do I just go off the handle? Do I give myself 24 hours or even 30 minutes to sit with what just happened before I spew it out on the people around me? You know, self-awareness really is key. And I think just in my experience with people trauma dumping on me, sometimes we can be so uncomfortable, or we can be dealing with so much pain that our common sense goes out the window. We're not thinking about how other people feel. All we need to do is feel better. That's all we want to do. We want answers. We want to feel better. We want to get it off of us. So whatever that means, we're ready to do it right now. And we aren't perfect. You know, even if you watch this video a bunch of times and take notes and do all the steps to make sure you don't trauma dump, you might eventually end up dumping on somebody in some space, and it is fine. But it's really important to be aware of that and do what you can to make sure that that isn't your go-to. For some people, that's their go-to. Now, sometimes we might all get overwhelmed and be in a space where we can't control our emotions and we just have to, you know, go off the handle. But that shouldn't be your go-to. That shouldn't be your first response or your first reaction. Like, let me dump all of this on them so I can move on and not be thinking about it. Because that's usually what people do. Like, have you ever experienced somebody trauma dumping on you and saying something so crazy, so traumatic that it literally fucks you up for days? It messes your head up for days. And you have a conversation with them about it again later on, and they're like, oh, I didn't even realize that, or oh girl, I wasn't even thinking about it. Like, it's not even a big deal to them, but it literally shook you to your core. So that's something to be mindful of too, how people respond after they trauma dump, and how you respond too if you feel like this is something that you doing. How you respond afterwards. How do you feel? I think a lot of times the response after trauma dumping can kind of just be avoidance, because it might feel good to get that stuff out, but like I said, now it's fresh on your brain. You haven't done anything differently about it, so all of those problems are still there. And you might not want to dump again. You might not want to go through that purge again. So what are you going to do then? Avoid it until you dump again or explode again. So I think The short answer to the question of how to stop trauma dumping on people is to really deal with your shit when the shit happened. Don't let your shit hit the fan. Don't let the shit pile up in the toilet. Don't let the stuff just pile up and pile up and pile up and happen back to back to back to back to back, where you don't have the opportunity to say, wait, let me have a respectful, quiet, calm, loving conversation with myself first. Let me talk to God about this. Then let me turn to my support system. Let me turn to my community. And I think that, just being, like I said, being aware of how you're feeling, being mindful of asking yourself those questions beforehand. What is my intention of sharing? What am I going to get out of sharing? Am I ready to share in a healthy way, or am I ready to share in a way that doesn't do me any good? Because a lot of times I feel we trauma dump when we don't have anything good to say. If you have a friend that did you wrong, you probably have trauma dumped for like 6 months. And sometimes your trauma dumping is gossiping, but what you're really doing is just expressing how upset you are and how much pain you're experiencing through talking crazy about them or saying bad stuff or keeping up with the drama in their life. So trauma dumping shows up in a lot of different ways. And I think it's important to be mindful of how you feel about trauma. If somebody hurts you, is your first course of action, how can I fuck them up? How can I get in their head? How can I mess up what they have going on? Or does somebody hurt you and your first action is, how can I release this in love? How can I make sure that this doesn't make me bitter? I think that makes a big difference too. If your immediate reaction is to get somebody back, you're probably going to be trauma dumping about the situation because you're ready to spew that fire on their ass. You ready to spew that hot stuff. You ready to let it be known how they got you messed up. Versus being in a space where you want to release something in love, your first reaction isn't going to be to spew anger, to spew words of hate, and to spew rage. I also think it's important to remember that the energy that you put out has to go somewhere. And if you love the person on the opposite end of that conversation, you really want to think twice about how you have that conversation with them, and ask yourself how you feel when people trauma dump on you. When people trauma dump on me, I don't even respond to the DM. I'll look at the DM and delete it immediately. I'm not responding. I don't have nothing to say. It makes me uncomfortable. I just can't even function looking at that stuff. It just makes my head spin. So imagine you doing that to somebody else. And these are strangers doing this to me. Sometimes it's strangers, but sometimes it's people that we love. So imagine someone you love doing that to you. Now, you might have a little more patience with them because you love them, but it still isn't right, because we are all dealing with trauma. We're all dealing with issues. And the things that you tell me could trigger me and send me down a path of depression and anxiety, and you might feel way better after you told it to me, but now I have to pick up the pieces of what I thought I was healing on, because now you just brought me back to a space that I thought I was done with, or brought me back to a space that I had moved away from. So there's so many different things and components that go into how we express ourselves to the people around us. But I think self-awareness is key, and I think building that relationship with yourself first is key too, because you can trauma dump with yourself all day long. Like when I first started expressing myself for real, I would write notes about the conversations I want to have with people. I still do that. If I have to have a hard conversation with you, I'm going to write notes. I'm going to write index cards. I'm going to have the conversation with myself a bunch of times. I'm going to talk over and over again about what I want to say. So when I do have the conversation, it's the most effective and I can get the most out of it. And I think that's a good thing to do when you have to vent about something, or you have something to say on your heart. Write about it, journal about it, talk to yourself about it a few times before you bring it to anybody else. Create a system that works for you, and just be mindful of, how you connect with people, and be mindful of that energy exchange. There has to be an exchange of energy. And I feel if there is an exchange of energy, 9 times out of 10, when you're venting with a friend, they're going to have advice for you. They're going to have words of encouragement, or they're going to be able to see you and resonate with you exactly how you need to, versus trauma dumping, which really doesn't leave you feeling fulfilled afterwards, which really doesn't make you really feel any better. And you might feel better right after. You might feel better, but it's fake. It's phantom. It's a phantom feel better. It's the feel better that you get when somebody cheats on you, so you go cheat on them. You don't really feel better. It hasn't really fixed the problem. But in the moment, you might feel better. But later down the line, you're going to realize, dang, I'm still feeling this, because all you did was spew it out. You haven't really fully released the energy because it's still affecting your spirit. All you did was maybe scratch the surface of some anger, some of that rage, some of that hate. But all of that is still sitting there. So understanding how trauma dumping affects you really is going to be important, because if you know something isn't good for you, I feel like you're less likely to kind of do it and more likely to create a system that works. So ask yourself, how do you feel after you trauma dump? How do you feel after you spew whatever you have to say on someone? Does it feel good temporarily? Do you feel guilty? Do you feel selfish? Do you feel very, very good about it? Do you not really care about it? Does it not affect you at all? You know, being mindful of all that is going to be good, because there are certain people in your life that can handle you trauma dumping. There are certain people that can handle that. There are certain people that are the therapist friend in the group, the mom friend of the group, and maybe I am that person for my friends, because my friends can tell me anything, even if it is something traumatic, like about assault or abuse, something I've experienced in my past. I can take myself out of the equation and show up for my friends 110%. But I think it's because I do this for my job as well. So I think that goes into it. So it's easy for me to kind of advise people and resonate with people. I'm an empath, so it's easy for me to connect with people and separated from what I'm feeling. But everybody isn't able to do that, you know? So, and also I don't have a lot of friends. So the very, 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 very few people in my life, of course they can tell me anything, because I don't have a lot of people telling me stuff, and I have the tools to maintain my energy and protect my energy, but everybody doesn't. So that's why it's good to have that conversation with your friends, and, you know, even let them know, like, hey, can I vent to you? Can I talk to you about this? Let me just put a little trigger warning. I'm talking about some assault or some abuse. Are you gonna be able to handle this, or do I need to call another friend? You know, have that conversation to be open, because you need the communication. The problem isn't the communication, it's how we go about the communication. So yeah, guys, that's some tea about trauma dumping and how we should work to not trauma dump on people. I hope you guys enjoyed this little quick spiel about that. If you guys have questions about trauma dumping, or you can resonate with some of the things in this video, please let me know down below. Let me know if some of these things have kind of sparked your interest, and let you know some different ways that you can go about communicating with the people around you, communicating with yourself, getting your feelings and thoughts off, so you can have a different communication and expression experience that benefits you, versus keeping you kind of on the hamster wheel of expressing the same way that really isn't serving you, you know? So yeah, I appreciate you guys. I hope you resonated with this video, and I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. I love y'all as always. Thank you guys for being here, and yeah, bye guys, bless.